Good evening. The completion of an ambitious year-long street renovation for central Dunedin hangs on the result of a meeting by a group of retailers tonight. They're being asked to pay a share of repaving their street frontages and are the only group holding out. It's the final chapter in what's been a controversial project, as Michael Lynch reports.
Dunedin's George Street has been a mess since last October, as workers paved the way for a multi-million footpath facelift. Robbie Burns is now looking down on instant grass and terraced lawns. The lower octagon's taking shape, and the new cupola is sitting very prettily on the refurbished council chambers. But further down George Street, chaos reigns on. One block is now closed off to most traffic as workers race to repave the road. Yet the retailers here are the lucky ones. They've paid up to have their footpaths repaved and an end's in sight, even if they weren't that happy about the cost.
Everyone's been a little bit perhaps unhappy about the percentage. Some have been unhappy to pay, but I think it's one of those things, if you want it completed, then you've got to actually put some input into it yourself.
But up the street, in the block next to the octagon, the shopkeepers aren't quite so happy they were asked to pay a fifth of the cost of the repaving, amounting to a couple of $1,000s in some cases. They're reluctant to comment today, but say tonight's meeting with the council should straighten things out. If they don't come to the party, some shop frontages may be left unpaved. And as for the long-suffering public, at last there seems an end in sight for the street works.
I'll improve. Can I be honest? A bloody nuisance. No, but it will be an improvement. It'll look lovely. Yeah.
Well, it's not very pleasant, but it's necessary, I suppose.
The whole contract is due for completion in October.
A landfill site will not be built adjacent to the yellow-eyed penguin colony at Bushy Beach in North Otago. The Oamaru and Waitaki councils did not agree over purchasing the controversial Wootton site for the landfill. The matter of a new rubbish disposal system will be on hold until a new district council is elected. The lakeside community of Frankton is engaged in a tussle with New Zealand Post over its mail service, or lack of it. Some residents are up in arms about a proposal to install new-style clusters of community mailboxes in the area. But locals say they're entitled to door-to-door mail delivery, just like any other growing suburb in New Zealand. Ellen Brady reports.
There was a time when an urban residential address with a street name and number and, of course, a stamp was all you needed to feel confident that your letter would be delivered to that address. But times have changed, and New Zealand Post no longer necessarily accepts your home address as a delivery address.
People living in small, semi-rural communities like Frankton have always had to go to the post office to pick up their mail. That was part of the country way of life. But Frankton residents say their community's come a long way since it was a settlement of holiday cottages. Today there are over 400 houses, many of them occupied all year round.
Most people here are most concerned that we're not getting the same delivery service that everybody else in New Zealand is getting for the same 40-cent stamp.
But it's not an argument which convinces New Zealand Post. In the new competitive climate where cost efficiency is king, the postal company's not keen to extend door-to-door deliveries to places like Frankton.
One of the reasons is that there are no footpaths in Frankton. There are only some areas of footpaths, and that makes it difficult for our posties who are doing a gate delivery service to undertake delivery.
Instead, New Zealand Post wants to install these, nests of 50 or so mailboxes located at strategic points around the community. They're already in use in Otago and Southland. When the post office in the tiny Southland community of Urapuki closed down, a cluster of boxes was installed just across the road.
There was no charge attached to them. They provide a secure means for people to have their mail delivered. It's a 6-day week, and on top of that we also have the letterbox where people can post their mail as well as receive their mail.
The community mailbox idea is a satisfactory system, I believe, in a more rural setting, somewhere outside of an urban setting. But I believe we have here an urban setting which is more suitable for a home delivery.
New Zealand Post says it'll send questionnaires about the community boxes to Frankton residents this week in the mail. An exercise which some residents say is pointless because they don't get mail deliveries.
The inter-island ferry, the Arohura, is being transformed at the wharf at Dunedin, and so far work is on schedule for completion of the contract later this month. The major refit by Sims Engineering has created an unfamiliar environment for inter-island line manager Ivan Goff. His guided tour today included a number of new spaces, including an enlarged cafeteria and dining room, and this blue room for children's video games. There's also a movie theatre and a video viewing room. What's Witloof? In France, it's called endive, and the French eat 200,000 tonnes of it each year. Now, a Dunedin firm is experimenting with a crop of Witloof, which it's hoping to export to the lucrative Japanese market. Carolyn Harper reports.
This is Witloof. It's probably not too familiar to most New Zealanders. However, its root chicory is used to make coffee drinks. Since the shortage of coffee during the Second World War, most of us haven't used chicory. However, the plant Witloof is now used in nouveau cuisine dishes like this quiche and salad. A local firm grows Witloof for both the local and international markets. This year, the root has been grown around Balclutha, where chicory grew during the war. It's then grown hydroponically in the dark to protect the fragile leaves. The balmy 18 degrees and 95% humidity keep the leaves crisp and the colour right.
The root comes in from the field looking like this, and after about a week it starts to shoot. You can see the new growth forming there, and after 2 weeks it's put on that sort of head, and after 3 weeks, or just over 3 weeks, it's ready to harvest.
The labour-intensive crop is particularly suited to this region.
Otago's probably got the best climate. It's most like the climate that exists in the north of France and Belgium and in Holland, which are the main production areas in the world.
Producers' efforts have gone into achieving the quality demanded by the Japanese. They're very quality conscious, and the leaves must be handled as little as possible because they stain very easily. If they don't retain their white and light yellow colour, there's no way they'll make the Japanese grade. The decorative function of Witloof is just as important as the taste. And that brings us to the all-important question of what does it taste like?
It's very much an acquired taste, sort of thing that adults enjoy and that children don't enjoy.
What's children's reaction to Witloof?
Blah, too bitter.
But I've got no complaints.
The Otago rugby team continued its winning way with an 18-6 win over counties at Pukekohe this afternoon. And not only did Otago add another maximum 4 points to its national championship tally, but Captain Mike Brewer scored one of the team's tries in a display, which should see him named as flanker for the All Blacks on Saturday. That's good news indeed. We'll be back tomorrow night. Good night.